Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and welcome to episode 16 of our build of the Endeavour by Amati. And in this episode we're tackling figure 14, so let's just read what we've got to do. Assemble the two pieces, 36 and 37, that make up the stern hatch cover. Glue the pieces 36 overlapped to piece 37, smother with fine sandpaper, then paint with a mahogany colour paint and clear coat transparent varnish. So same painting process and colours as we've used before, and what it's basically saying there is that 36 is a wider diameter than 37, so don't get them the wrong way round. The larger one goes on the top, so if you imagine that's emulating the opening in the deck, and then that's the cover that goes on top. So I guess it would have been hinged and lift, or maybe slide backwards or something like that. I think when we look at the plans, there's probably not enough space for sliding. Now we'll have already sanded these parts once and given them one coat, but I'm going to show you a little thing we're going to do just to add a little bit of interest to it. So these are our parts, so let's remove them and take it from there. Okay, so just as before, we're taking them out as close to the part as we can to minimise any cleanup. There we go, so we can put that to one side, and then as we look at that, we've got two tabs on each side that we need to clean up. And if you want, you can take the laser scorching back, just so that it's a little easier to paint over. Sometimes the laser scoring means that you need to put more coats of paint on, so sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. Depends on the part and the position. Okay, so that's our two parts basically cleaned up, and we've painted both sides of these, so it doesn't really matter. But what I want to do is just have a look at the overhang. So there is a bit of a lip all the way around, but it's greater on two sides than it is on the other two sides. So what that means is that we're probably going to put, where we've got the small overhang, what I'm probably going to do is line the edge up so that there's no overhang on one edge. Then we've got an equal lip all the way around, and that one edge will be basically our hinged edge, and we'll put that towards the facing towards the skylight, so that the lip, the bigger lip, is facing towards the stern. So that would then suggest that as the lid opened, the lid would be facing towards the skylight, so that you'd be walking in and out from the stern side. So that's my plan. We need a small dollop of super glue to do that. That's all it'll take. So let's do that now. Don't worry about the fact that we've painted over it. Again, because we've got a wood grain, the glue will take to it quite easily. So we just need to take a small amount of glue. It's not going to take very much. There we go, and we can just circulate that around the middle. If you put too much on, then you've got the risk that when you put the parts together and push them together, that you're then squeezing glue out, and that creates a bit of a mess and maybe work to tidy up. Right, and just to make sure that we're square, I'm putting them face down so that the level back edge is on the mat. There we go. Now, if you do think that you've got some excess glue, now's the time to remove it, back of a knife or something like that, and just scrape it away. I think I might have had a little bit there. Okay, we'll give that a moment to dry. Now, once you've got it glued together, if you don't think you managed to get that perfectly straight, I think I have. Putting it on the mat certainly ensures that, but if it's moved or something like that and it's not quite straight, don't worry, just straighten it up on a little bit of emery board and just go backwards and forwards until it's nice and flat. And then what we can do is look at this top edge. Now, the top edge is all square, and what I'd like to do is just round that off a little bit. So what we're going to do with some very fine sandpaper is just run along the top edges. And because we've painted it, it's easy to see what we've done. And that will take that square edge off and just give it a slightly rounded appearance, which I personally like. There we go. Just rounding the edges off so it's less abrasive. Now, you'll notice I've only done that on 3 sides, and that's because the flat edge at the back that's hinged I want to show as being slightly different. So it's an easy way of adding a look to it that makes it feel like it's a usable item and it doesn't look the same all over. Apologies if you can hear the hailstones in the background, not much I can do about that. So there we go. That is now ready for painting. Okay, to make the process of painting this easier to handle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our part on a lollipop stick here. You can buy them in bags of 10, anywhere between 10 and 100 from craft shops and things like that, and they're very cheap. And then a little small blob of blue tack on the end, like so, and then we can just stick our part onto the blue tack there like that, and that makes that nice and easy to paint. We can get all the way around all the edges that we need to paint, and we can do it all in one without having to paint one half, let it dry, then paint the other half. So that just speeds up our process, makes it easier to handle. And then we're using our same walnut brown that we've used throughout. And we'll take some of that paint, put it in our palette here. If you don't have a palette, if you're a beginner, then you can use an old jar lid, or the blister pack for tablets like paracetamol or something. Whatever you can find that'll do the job. I'm just going to thin this down a little bit, so we'll put our brush in the water, mix the wet brush in, and that'll just thin that down a little bit. Okay, we don't want too much paint on our brush at any one time. It's always best to have less paint on your brush and go back for paint more regularly than to have lots on and then try and smear it around. So that's what we're aiming for, and then we can just paint it like so with the grain. And then we can go in and do the edges. Okay, and then when you've done the edges, it's worth just going back over the top, because sometimes you find that the paint's come off the bristles and built up a little lip on the top, and we don't want to build up a lip. So that's our second coat, but only our first coat on the edges. So we need to let that dry and then do the edges again, and then we don't really need to do the top, but we'll go over the top for the reason I've just given, to make sure we've not got any other uneven build-up of paint. So we'll just give that a moment. I'll come back to it, give it 5 minutes or something. We only need it to be sort of touch dry, and we can go over it again. Because the paint sinks in, it's a very, very fast time between being able to put coats of paint on. Okay, we're ready for our second coat around the edges, so we'll just go in there again, following the direction of the grain. Make sure it's nice and sharp and we've not got any build-up of paint that's going to change the shape. And then we can just go over the top there and make sure all the paint's blended in like we just talked about. There we go. That looks great. So whilst that's drying, we can mark out on our plans the measurements, so we know the correct position for placing this on the deck. So what we can see is that this square here is our hatch. You can see it says part 36 and 37 there, so it's easy to identify. And the only reference point we've got on the deck currently is this skylight that we can use for a distance. So that's basically what we're going to do. So it's simply a case of taking our rule, and if we put it on that center line on the skylight here, we know that we're absolutely square. And then I can see that we are at 25, 26, 26, yeah, 26 millimeters in from there. So let's have a look at that on our model. Okay, so we can go 26. Now there is an overhang here. And that overhang we need to account for. So that overhang is a millimeter. So using the center of the planks as our center line, I can put our rule here along that center line, so we know that we're at least square to our planking. And what we'll do is, rather than doing at 26, we'll do it at 25 to allow for that 1 millimeter overhang, and that should correctly position us. Now I'm saying 26, it was actually 27, wasn't it? So we need to do it at 26. So we just put the tape in the right position on the rule first, then apply it onto the deck like so, and then if I hold that in place, I can then peel that off the rule, remove the rule, There you go, and that's the edge we want to glue up to, so that should be absolutely the correct distance for our hatch cover. So we need to mark the hatch cover up, but before we can do that, we actually need to clear coat it. So I'm not doing anything different here to what we've already done. It's the same varnish that we've used before, and we're just going to go around and put that on. And it's the same process as with the painting. We do the edges and then make sure there's no runs or drips or any build up that's going to change the shape of the part. So nice thin coats so they dry quickly and we can actually put our coats down. If you put too much on, then you're waiting forever for it to dry. So there we go. Now it's not going to dry as quickly as the paint did. It's not going to sink in because it's now on the surface of the dry paint. So we need to give that a moment to dry off, and as soon as it feels touch dry, just give it a tap with your finger, and if it feels dry, you're ready for the next coat. Right, our gloss coat has now dried, and the next thing we need to do is find the center point of that so that we can align the hatch correctly when we fit it. So to do that, I've cut a couple of thin strips of masking tape. Well, 3 to be precise. Now, if you've not got a cutting mat, most people probably don't, then just stick it down onto your cutting mat and use a rule and cut a strip off. The width isn't really important. You just need it to be thin enough to be able to see what you're doing when you put it across from corner to corner, and make sure it is corner to corner, and that is now. There we go. So that's one. And then we do the same again. So if I put that on that corner there, been a bit short. If I do it there, this bit of tape is actually a bit shorter than I thought it was. From corner, it's not exactly right. Got to get this spot on. There we go, corner to corner, and that gives us our center point. So then with our third piece of masking tape, we can find our center line. So there's the back, so we want the tape to be going across that way. And what I'm going to do is use my rule to make sure that we get it equally. So this is, what is it, 11 across, so we want it 5.5. So if we just pull that there like so, that looks right, but we will check it in a sec. Oh, it's moved. That's no good, is it? There we go. So from the edge, that's about 6, so that needs to move over, and that's pretty much spot on. So if we hold that one down and straighten that one up, check it again, 5.5. So that's now correct, and that center line we're going to use for orientating on the deck. Okay, we can now take our part off the blue tack, and you can see how easy that is. And you can see how some of that varnish went underneath. So the other thing the blue tack has done is given us a nice clear spot for putting glue on. So that's our next job, is we're going to put a little bit of CA on. When you've got a sealed surface like this, the wood glue doesn't bond quite as well as the CA does, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to take you out for a sec while we do this. So again, a small amount on our wire here. We don't need very much at all. There we go. That would be plenty. And this is our flat edge here, so we need to make sure that we have that at the back as we planned. So using a pair of tweezers, let's get you in a little bit. So we should be able to line up our tape with our deck there. And I'm just going to put, without any glue coming into contact, I'm just going to line that up with the tape. And then make sure that our tape is in line with the deck as it goes down. You do have a moment to correct it if you feel you need to. That should be right. So we can now lift off our tapes. And that's our hatch in place. So that completes this episode and figure 14 of our build instructions. So in the next video we'll be tackling step 15, and that is the assembly of the master hatch. We will have some drilling to do and a little bit more complicated construction than we've done previously. So this will be an interesting episode. So I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, you enjoy your modelling and I will see you very soon. Bye for now. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. It's free, and that way you won't miss my first impressions, my tool reviews, my product reviews, and any of my builds, including wooden model kits as well as plastic. It's all free, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can hit my PayPal link in the text below. Every pound goes straight into the channel to keep the cameras rolling and to do more fun stuff for you to watch.